The Monday, June 29th, 2020 meeting of the Marquette City Commission is now called to order at 6 p.m. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, roll call, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Bonzo?
Here.
Commissioner Davis?
Here.
Commissioner Frazier?
Here.
Commissioner Schlegel?
Here.
Commissioner Stonehouse?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill?
Here.
Mayor Smith?
Here. Thank you. Commissioners, we have an agenda presented to us. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Schlegel?
Make the motion to accept the agenda as printed.
Thank you. Second? Commissioner Frazier?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. Brings us to announcements. I do have a few updates from City Engineering on the current construction projects. Additional information can be found on the City of Marquette Engineering webpage. First up, Lakeshore Boulevard. I'm sure you've all seen that as you kind of are diverted around it this summer. Work is progressing on schedule by Smith Construction. Phase 1 is Pine to Wright Street. Most of that work has been completed. They're still working on finishing touches such as the roundabout lighting, paving, shoulder work, and turf restoration. It should be open to traffic by late July. Phase 2 is Wright to Holly Street. Underground utilities are nearing completion. Roadway, parking lot, and multi-use pathway work is ongoing. Also, there's currently work happening at the Marquette Drive, Lakeview Drive, and Union Street area. That's being done by A. Lindbergh and Sons. The Simp sanitary sewer laterals replacements and Matson Lower Hart parking lot resurfacing project is scheduled to begin on July 13th with Oberstar. And the annual sidewalk replacement and repair project by Associated Contractors is expected to be completed in the next couple of weeks. That brings us to boards and committees. Item number 1, we do have one appointment for consideration this evening. Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Bonzo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we appoint Carol Tuchinski to the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee for an unexpired term ending June 1st, 2023.
I'll second it.
Commissioner Frazier?
Second.
And Commissioner Bonzo, any comments?
No further comments other than that I just want to thank Ms. Tuchinski for volunteering.
Commissioner Frazier, anything?
Nope.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. Brings us to item 2, reappointments. We've got 3 on the docket this evening. Do we have a motion, Commissioners? Mayor Pro Tem Hill?
I move that we reappoint Tara Glusky to the Presque Isle Park Advisory Committee, Glenda Gordon to the Police Fire Pension Board, and Michael Reed to the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee for the terms as listed.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Commissioner Schlegel?
Second the motion.
Perfect. Mayor Pro Tem, any comments?
Terrific folks, glad to have them on board, helping the city and continuing to do their good work.
Commissioner Schlegel, anything to add?
Second that.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor, please say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. Brings us to public comment. Public comments may not exceed 3 minutes per person. Please clearly state your name and physical address when making public comments. Also, please note commissioners cannot immediately respond to public comments. Our chance to do so is at the end of the meeting during commissioner comments. Do we have anyone for public comment this evening, either via Zoom or phone?
There's currently no one that's called in to the conference call via Zoom. I think we had some written comment.
Okay, we
submitted
do have
prior
some
to the
written
meeting.
We've got 2 written.
2 written comments. Okay, City Clerk, if you could please read both of those for us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
This is from Scott Emerson, MD, 119 Lakewood Lane. To Marquette City Commission, while I do support the Life Light Group's apparent cannot support their plan for a public festival in our city parks at this time. Although Michigan's governor has done a good job in controlling the COVID-19 pandemic in our state, helping ensure a steady economic recovery, the disease is now out of control in many other states that have not been so vigilant. Marquette and the UP have been especially fortunate and so far having very few cases per capita. We need to be very careful to keep it that way. Control of this highly contagious virus and subsequent economic recovery are very fragile. It would be most unfortunate to have Lifelight's hopeful message tainted by the group's festival, becoming a vector for super spreader event in our community. Other events that many enjoy have been appropriately canceled this year for the safety and well-being of our community. Lifelight needs to withdraw their plan for the public festival gathering in our community at this time and reschedule for next year as others have done. Virtual gatherings and guest columns spreading their message in major and local newspapers are viable and effective options for this year. Respectfully, Scott Emerson. The second is from Jude Catello, 119 Lakewood Lane. As a long-term resident, I and my family have looked forward to our summer festivals in the city. When these large gatherings have been postponed, the Blues Fest, Border Shore, Seafood Fest, 4th of July, until 2021, we are comforted that the decision to defer these events is a very wise one. I watch what is beginning to happen in Texas and other states who have relaxed their guard too soon. The COVID-19 cases are on the rise. Now is not the time to allow any large gatherings. The potential for a super spreader situations is all too serious. We must be consistent and vigilant. Those who want to come great can come next year. Stay strong, Jude Catello.
Thank you. No additional public comment, is that correct? Okay. All right, so that brings us to our presentations for the evening. We've got 3 presentations tonight. First up, item number 3, we have a presentation by Police Chief Blake Rebold about some incredible life-saving efforts by our police department. I'm thinking we'll meet over at the side podium. Chief Rebold, did you want me to join you, or are you going to handle?
Yeah, please, if
Okay.
you don't mind. Call you into action. Your Honor, fellow commissioners, I'm honored to be here tonight to recognize 2 officers from the Marquette Police Department for life-saving efforts. These efforts occurred in February, but due to the COVID-19 epidemic, we were unable to recognize them at those meetings. So I'm here tonight with Officer Ben Tackla. If you join me up here, Ben. Officer Haynes was unable to make it due to his current assignment with the Marquette Police Department, but he will be awarded the award in-house. So, Officer Tackla, on February 23rd, 2020, Officer Tackla and Officers Calzetta responded to the Carp River near the end of Cliffs Power Road on report of a female subject that fell into the water and was unable to get out. Officer Tackla was able to locate her in chest-deep water. Officer Tackla had the presence of mind to bring with him a water rescue flotation device and used it to pull the subject from the water. The victim advised she was hiking along the river with her dog when she fell from the ice shelf. Officer Tackla was able to hike the victim out of the woods to awaiting EMS personnel, where she made a full recovery. Officer Lorela recommended Officer Ben Tackla for a life-saving award. It was reviewed by our life-saving award committee, and it is with great pleasure that we honor Officer Ben Tackla with a life-saving pin and a certificate for his actions on February 23rd. So, thank you. Good job. The second award is going to go to Officer Mark Haynes. On February 10th, 2020, at 19:16 hours, Officer Mark Haynes responded to the American Legion regarding an AED incident. Officer Haynes's response was immediate, and once on scene, he performed life-saving procedures. Officer Haynes recognized that both CPR and the AED was needed, and from the result of that was able to shock the subject back into a sustainable heart rhythm. Witnesses also on scene advised that without Officer Haynes' quick action, the subject may have died. We received a notice from Corporal John Rink and Officer Mike Roth, along with Lieutenant Mark Worry, recommending Officer Mark Haynes be acknowledged for his life-saving actions on February 10th, 2020. The victim made a full recovery. So with that, we will honor Officer Mark Haynes for his efforts on February 10th. So thank you very much.
Tremendous job, well done, gentlemen. Thank you, Chief Rebold, for presenting. All right. right, moving on to our second presentation of the evening, item number 4, a certificate of appreciation for our Director of Municipal Utilities, Curt Goodman, who is retiring on June 30th, which is tomorrow, after 40 years. Curt, go ahead and join us at the side podium, please.
Yep. Well, I have two awards or recognitions for Curt Goodman this evening. The first fits nicely in with the second. The first is I want to recognize Curt for his 40 years of service to the city of Marquette as of April 1st, 2020, so it was a while ago, but I've been holding off on this until we could actually have a meeting to recognize you. As Curt mentioned at the earlier event at the Kiln today, he started in 1980, and he's been here ever since. And Curt, congratulations on 40 years. You'll never catch me, but that's just too bad. That was always his goal, was to catch me. And lastly, I'd like the mayor to present this to certificate of appreciation to Curt Goodman for his retirement after 40 years with the city of Marquette, effective July 1st? June 30th, July 1st. Curt's been a great employee. I mean, he's been as loyal and as dedicated as anybody I've met in this business. And if I didn't know any better, I'd say he's probably sad, doesn't really want to go. He's got a lot more to offer, I think, or he thinks. But like all good people, you know, the time comes along when we need to move along. And Curt, you've done a great job for us, and you will be missed. Thank you.
I'd just like to echo city manager's comments and say we'll truly miss you here at the city. I know you've got Mark, who's going to do a nice job after you do leave, and I appreciate the fact you're able to train him and get him up and running. But you've done a lot of things to help us be forward-thinking and ahead of the curve with the city of Marquette, and we really do appreciate it, Curt. Thank you for all you've done. Congratulations.
Introduce your wife at least.
Yeah, I think Susan Moore forgot to do that. I just want to make a couple comments. You know, it's been an honor for the last 40 years working for the city, serving the residents of Marquette. We'd like to thank the commission, this commission, past commissioners for all the support throughout the years. Without the support, my job would have been challenging. Mike's would have been, or city managers would have been challenging. I was very fortunate to find a career that I loved, working on improving water quality, be it on the wastewater side, or drinking water, or stormwater. So many people had a great influence in my career. Special thanks to long-term regulators Jack Reichquist, recently retired Steve Casey, former Public Works Superintendent Steve Dory. That was a true mentor in public service. Special thanks to city manager, staff, his office staff, fantastic. They really, really know how to get things done and keep us out of trouble. Also, another person recognized, Chief Financial Officer Gary Simpson. Then moving forward, you're going to be in good hands with Mark O'Neill, assuming the director's position. Also, my staff that I've been able to work with, the current staff, the past staff, and special thanks to my administrative assistant. Okay. In closing, I would like to thank my wife for putting up with me for the last 29 years. Our dinner time conversations will never be the same. Sue, in her 20 years of working in the water billing department, taught me importance of customer service as how we go about our job. For that, thank you, Sue. Thank you, City of Marquette.
Good job.
job, Curt. Commissioners, do you have any comments you'd like to add after that? Commissioner Davis?
Curt, thank you for those 40 years of service. As I mentioned at the last meeting, we don't often think about our water as we turn on the tap or what happens to it when it's discharged. And other communities have had to think about the quality of their water. So because of your leadership, I think that's why we are comfortable with what happens with our water in the community. I think there's been some innovations under your leadership, and you're leaving behind a very solid department and a department in good hands with Mark. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Bonzel?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that. Thank you so much for your service, Curt. I know that you were a mentor and a role model to me as a public servant when I was first getting involved in city government. I'm sure that's true of many other people that have come through the city in some capacity or another over the years. I just want to say that, I think that what you just displayed there, your selflessness, your dedication to service, and your dedication to the people that you served with is a perfect example of why public service, especially at the local level, is still such an honorable profession and such an honorable pursuit. And I think we can all only hope to emulate your example. So thank you and best of luck in retirement.
Commissioner Frazier?
Thanks a lot for your service, Curt. Been a pleasure to know you over the last few years. Been great for everything. And just so you know, your old treatment plant are going to try and make your air freshener. It smells like your old work, so you can remember it forever. Don't forget to keep your cell phone on in case something happens.
Pro Tem Hill?
And I've had the honor of working directly with Curt at the wastewater treatment plant, and we are going to have the lasting impact you've left in this community, that we will have a safe and secure water supply that keeps our beautiful Lake Superior clean for generations. And it's really been a privilege to know you and get to work with you. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Schlegel?
Curt, what else can I say other than thank you? And thank you for mentoring Mark to fill your shoes. Good luck. Enjoy yourself. And I guess from at some point in time, I really hope that there's a time when I can shake your hand without all this other junk going on. But and know from just the general citizen, this guy that sits there and goes, 40 years, holy cow. Taking care of our infrastructure is such an amazing task, and you and the rest of the people that you work with, whether it's in your department or other parts of our city organization, are just heroes and just can't say thank you enough. So good luck. Enjoy yourself.
Commissioner Stonehouse, anything to
Curt,
add?
let me leave you with a perspective or maybe a thought. I can empathize with your retirement, having retired from the military with 27 years. So I understand the change of life that will occur. And I encourage you to get on with the rest of your life, because it's a wonderful world out there. And you now have an opportunity to do so with a clean slate, so to speak. But thank you for everything you've done for us, because it's been deeply appreciated. And Mark, I think you get about 1 month of free complaints about everything that Curt did. And then after that, you're on your own. But enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Congrats again, Curt. All right, for our third presentation this evening, item number 5, we have Mr. Walt Lindela with the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee. Walt, thanks for joining us. Please go ahead on the side podium when you're ready. I know there's a nice presentations too that we need to get loaded up here. Usually they have to get it matched up.
I'm sure we've got something going on here with it, so
Usually
we'll see.
it just takes a moment.
We'll see what happens, I guess. But first of all, I'm Walt Lindela. I am the chair of the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee for the City of Marquette. Commissioners, appreciate the time this evening to come before you. Once again, to give you an update on what's happening with the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee and Arts and Culture Division with the city. As you can see from our first screen here, what we wanted to talk to you about a little bit was the way it all fits, because we know we've had some turnover in the commission, and there's always new folks coming in and out. And under the Community Services Department, there's the Senior Services Division, the Parks and Rec Division, and the Arts and Culture Division. And it exists with a mission to advise the City Commission in its effort to support, facilitate, and grow an empowered and vital arts, cultural, and creative community within the city. Our current members, we do have one that did join us this evening now, but we have Madeline Goodman, Rusty Bowers, Jeremy Johnson, Michael Reed, Jamie Weeder, and myself. And those are your members currently. We do have an opening or two, so if there is someone that is listening or wants to get involved with this, we certainly encourage you to look into the process of becoming a member. Tonight, I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the efforts that have been coming out of the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee and the division based on the Arts and Culture Master Plan, including various initiatives. Initiative 2 in the Arts and Culture Master Plan was to develop regional partnerships that foster communication and collaboration among all Marquette area arts, culture, and creative sectors. And as you can see from the screen here, there are 110 partners that are currently within some form of collaboration with arts and culture in the city of Marquette. It's to make connections across economic sectors with for-profits and nonprofits, both public and private. And we decided that there's really no reason to reinvent the wheel. We've got these groups out there. It's just to kind of work and to coordinate them to make them work together to have a positive impact on the city of Marquette. Another initiative within the master plan was under the auspices of event development. It said to maximize civic engagement for festivals and community celebrations, also provide the community access to resources and services to strengthen the role of arts and culture in the creative economy of Marquette. On this screen here, you see just a few of the events that have been helped to be developed by arts and culture. It's important to keep in mind that under the changes that came in with the master plan for arts and culture in the city of Marquette, it was to not so much to do events, but serve as a clearinghouse and a resource center to get some of these events. And you see some of them here. Hiawatha, the Music Co-op, Bomere Heritage Center, and Peter White Public Library working together for the Winter Folk Festival. There was a Blues Cruise fundraiser with the Upper Peninsula Arts and Culture Alliance. And also one of the new ones is the Fresh Coast Plein Air Festival that brings artists together from locally and outside of the region to paint outdoors in Marquette. And it's been very popular. Another item is community engagement, and working to do this because the master plan called for continuing a commitment to young and old people and people of all ages, cradle to grave learning idea. Community engagement for arts and culture means senior arts, creative community series, monthly exhibits, art week. You can see from the photos here, there's all kinds of activities, including arts awards and the annual spectacle. It's anywhere from 17 to 20,000 visitors annually take part in these various events and activities within the community. So that's local, and that's also out-of-towners coming to Marquette because this exists. Senior Arts is one of those. 338 seniors have taken part in this since January of 2019. It's funded by the Senior Millage in partnership with Senior Services. The annual Arts Awards, which some of you have attended in the past, since 1997 has had 22 Arts Awards ceremonies, 45 area organizations have been recognized, and 170 of our creative community have been recognized. This falls into a part in the master plan that called for nurturing of the high spirit of volunteerism. And to be honest, you know that our arts and culture activities are run by their volunteers. So the initiative is to continue the nurturing of that, civic engagement, philanthropic support of the arts, culture, and heritage, but also to continue recognition of those that give their time. Art Week is one of those big events that, well, unfortunately, of course, we know this year it did not happen because of COVID, but this is working with 50 local businesses, 60 arts and cultural organizations, and 200 local artists. Andrea Ingmeyer, the director of the Peter White Public Library, says that Art Week engages our community in a way that other events do not. This event provides arts exposure to all age and socioeconomic groups. It's not a sales event. It's an opportunity to experience and then participate in the arts, which is the goal of what is happening with arts and culture and the center. Of course, this is the year of COVID. We've had some very interesting challenges, but I can tell you that as the chair of the committee, I've been extremely impressed with how well the staff, Tina and the staff, have adapted and pivoted quickly. Weekly staff meetings, artist resource directories, all of these programs, they shifted out of the office, as many did, and arts and culture did not stop in the city of Marquette and in the surrounding areas. Working from home, all of the staff was able to do a lot of these various programs and activities, and we'll talk about some of those a little bit more. Virtual programming for senior arts, very popular. Senior theater experience, senior dance classes. Take and go art kits. Those are designed for a way to safely share art supplies and host classes that can be attended from home. With also that underneath the COVID auspices, they decided to work on putting together a resource guide and have more grant assistance. You can see from the images here that there have been various programs and activities that have been done over the last few months, including getting some emergency relief funding for Upper Peninsula, the Michigan, or the MCACA grant program. As you see, various counties there received $3,000, $3,000, $9,000. Marquette County, with the work out of this town, this office, helped to get $11,000 together to help those that are in the creative community that were struggling with COVID. There was a Creatives Conquering COVID-19 campaign that was created for social media. These are stories of people in our community that are anywhere from artists to business owners, talking about how they handled their downtime when their businesses were not running or they weren't able to create in their studios. It's a way of putting the creative community out there in front of people, featuring creatives, and it shares what they were able to do in their quarantine time. So as you can see, things have been moving forward very well with that. The Marquette Memory Box is another initiative that was created that has visual art, includes a community art wall. There are performing arts on YouTube that are linked in. And this is not just necessarily in Marquette. I do want to make sure that you understand that while it is based in Marquette, there is a lot of effort to get various groups together from around the country to share their creativeness also with the community here in Marquette. And technology has worked really well to do that in many different avenues, as we've all found out. One of the things that is being worked on right now with arts and culture is shifting over into redesigning and redoing what's known as Marquette 365. That is the online community calendar. It falls definitely under the master plan under Initiative 1.3, which called for ensuring an attractive, supportive, and sustainable environment for artists and creative businesses. And strategies under the initiative include providing an artist resource and services database, provide an arts and culture activities calendar. When we did those original master planning sessions way back about 5 years ago, those were the key things that came out of that. They wanted to have a centralized location for that information. Marquette 365 was created. It has had some bumps in the road. It is now being picked up and managed here within the offices of Arts and Culture. Here's a quick sort of a run through of what the changes to the website will be. You'll see that they will have more of a visual element to them, making it a bit more appealing, and also have blogs that will be attached to it that people can write. There will be a public art directory that goes with it that has all of the resource information in one-stop location. If you have questions, if you're in Marquette and you say, I want to create the next big festival, and I firmly believe someone is building that this summer because of the events not happening, someone is going to want to build the next big thing in Marquette. Well, this is going to be a resource center for that, and that's coming out of the Arts and Culture Division. It also has a community art wall where people will be able to create and submit and participate in that process. This has all been part of the overall shift for this year. We as a committee really, for various reasons, did not meet for the last several months because of COVID and meetings not happening. We had our first meeting via Zoom earlier this month. getting back on track, we can know that as we're looking forward, we will know that there will be a much stronger presence of virtual programming and online programming, primarily through the Marquette 365 page and also the websites for the city. There will be a focus on public art, as the Public Art Commission is in a full swing in the city working on the next projects. Also, Art Week 2021, barring any flare-ups again, should be back next year. One of the other big projects is the Cultural Trail, which you will be hearing a lot more about that in the next year or so, which is basically putting a cultural and artistic slant on a trail that will run along the lakeshore, which we already know there is a trail there. It's going to be sort of a working together with those groups. We will continue with our arts advocacy, and we will continue to work on supporting those creatives and groups that are putting the events on that make Marquette the cool place that it is. And it's really interesting. It's as we are coming out of this, I will leave you with the idea that the arts have the power to unify and pull everyone together during these times. We don't really have any clear path to normal, but we're going to try to stay fluid as a committee, as a division, and we are going to try to be responsive to the calls and the needs of the community. I open it up for your questions right now, if you have any for me, and hopefully I can answer them. Tina is also here. If there are any specific questions, she'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you, Walt. I appreciate the update, especially all the programming that has changed quickly with COVID-19.
It's been interesting times these
nice
last
to hear
few
what's
months,
going on. I see it
particularly.
happening, but it's good to see it all in one place, and you've certainly been working hard on the
You
staff.
will
as
see
we
a
work.
much more centralized effort as the Marquette 365 site develops in the next 12 months in particular for people to use as a resource. And they can do it just by going there, which is the really nice part about it. So,
Excellent. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Commissioner Davis?
I have no questions, I just have some comments. I am always impressed with our arts in the community, and particularly this year, as you talked about adjusting to the COVID crisis, you did what arts do the best. You innovate and improvise.
Yes.
And your list was pretty impressive. Also, I know that arts are usually the first to get cut in funding, and it's always the starving artist is a real thing, and so I'm impressed with the funding that you've been able to find. And finally, the other thing I noted is that what you are doing, you relate back to the master plan, which
Yes.
is why strategic planning is very important, so thank you for that too. So your presentation was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you and Tina and all of the rest of the Arts and Culture Committee.
Staff did a great job of
And
putting
the
it
staff.
together. Yes,
And,
they were
and
wonderful.
Walt, it's always good to be listening to your voice.
Well, good.
Other commissioners, Mayor Pro Tem Hill?
Echoing everything that Commissioner Davis said, I do have a question though, and after saying thank you to all the hard work that you guys, it's really, it's such an honor to be representing the work that you do, and I really appreciate all that's done. I got to speak at the gala. It was so much fun, and what a tremendous, that civic engagement is real, and so it is the essential part of the soul of our community. It's really very exciting and beneficial, and it's kept us through some of these trying times. So I'm wondering what 2 or 3 priority things that we can do to support you, to support the arts community. I'm hearing about the calendar, publicizing the calendar, referring people to the calendar. Are there some other maybe top ideas that we want, that we can do to help support the community or the commission?
My suggestion and my answer to that is to try to maintain as much of the funding as the budgets will allow. I am not up here with any kind of blinders on that thinks that, money is going to be falling from trees. This is a very difficult year for the city. But I would encourage the commission to look long and hard at the budget process of saying, okay, what can we do to help keep these programs going? I know Tina and the staff and John Swenson and everybody in community services is working very hard to be as efficient and as responsive as possible. So they're looking at ways. I know there's been some discussions of like the rent for the Arts and Culture Center at the library. It's a $5,000 difference, but $5,000 is $5,000 when things are very tight. and that's downward for rent. I guess I would say that try to work with the division and try to work with them in ways of innovation that would allow the money that can be put toward it to work to continue that. Some groups that have been able to secure funding, in effect, have at times indicated, they say, well, you know, we could get the funding together for this effort and we can make that happen, and it's happening in the city and so on. You know, what is the city putting forth? You know, what is the city itself putting forth? Are they putting the money where their mouth is when they say this is wonderful to have all this art, it is wonderful to have all this cultural activity? Look at the budget, support it as best as you can. That's the best way to do it in the short term. Long term is if you have an idea for something, find me, find Tina. We're happy to talk to you about it. I'm, you know, very involved in event planning in Marquette and been doing that for a long time, and I'm more than willing to listen. And I didn't mention that in my comments, but as we get back into meeting, knock on wood, I would encourage any commissioner who wishes to come to a session and just sit with us, ask questions. We'd be happy to do it. I know we'll be virtually doing things here for a little bit, I believe, as we all roll forward. So,
Other commissioners? Commissioner Slagle?
Thank you, Mayor. Walt, Tina, thank you guys for all the work that you guys do. It really is amazing to see how easily you guys transitioned from something where some organizations or groups of people may have started to panic or said, well, there's not much we can do, so let's just wait and see. Well, you didn't do that. You drove forward, and you just kept doing the best with everything that you've had, all the adversity that's kind of been thrown at us with this COVID thing. Marquette 365, thank you for taking that over. It was something that I think was intended to be, a very good program for us to utilize, but for whatever reason, it just kind of flopped. And I think if you guys can take that and run with it, then that's a fabulous way to kind of save that resource. The cultural trail sounds really cool. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. And, my doodles are chicken scratch, no doubt about it. But my sewing room in my house, my daughter's art station for her painting, these are the things that we, as community members, we do these things at home, we do them in public, we get together with our neighbors and participate or take in the arts and culture vibe that goes on around here, which is so fabulous. At the same time, one of my biggest concerns is I see things kind of going the way of the web, and I mean that in the sense from retail. Ben Franklin's closing, and I take that that artistic side, my wife, and what she enjoys doing. If there's a way that you can incorporate onto your 365 our local businesses that we can truly support, and I realize they're retiring and that everybody deserves to do what's next, but if we can keep the arts and culture retail side of things front and center, and we can support them, I think that would be a great way to do that, maybe somewhere in there. I don't know how much there is, and I would sure as heck like to see Amazon take a pass at my door once in a while because I'm sick of that truck driving in and dropping things off because we don't have access to certain items here, or maybe we just don't know that we have access to it. The quilting side of things, and I keep sorry to go personal on this, but my wife and her small group of people will get in the car on a Saturday and go from here to the Keweenaw to Marinette because there's some weird group that I don't mean weird in a bad way, weird in a good way, but these group of people that say, hey,
creatively unique group.
That's that. Thank you, Walt. You're always a cunning linguist. But I just think that if there's a way that we can promote some retail in that respect, maybe something that we weren't aware of. But great presentation. I always feel bad for the people that come after you when it comes to budget time and you give us a presentation because it's so well put together and artistically as well as informatively. But keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for all that.
Mr. Stonehouse?
Thank you for everything you're doing. I think there's no doubt in this city, there's no doubt in this commission, the importance of what the Arts and Culture Center is and what they do and how they do it. And I think everyone here, everyone here spoken only with the highest accolades for the organization, the people. I have a challenge. And this is my challenge. 20 years ago, I believe, there was a group that tried to do a trail of signs along the waterfront downtown Marquette and related. They got nowhere. The Harbor Commission or Harbor Committee had a slice at it. They didn't get anywhere. There was DDA even had a slice at it. They didn't get anywhere. Arts and Culture has had it now 3 years, and they didn't get anywhere. So what I'm challenging you to do is to take the next year and get it done. And I realize that you're not going to be putting signs in the ground because that takes funding, lead time to do that. But doing the planning for each of the installations, what it is, how it comes together, what the data costs are, all can be done in a year and should be done in a year. Because those signs tell us, well, those signs do, is that they work 7 days a week, 365 days a year, telling the visiting public who we are. And they tell the Marquette story. And that's an important story that we tell. We just finished at 5 o'clock today dedicating and accepting the kiln constructed down at the end of Lake Street. And that too tells that powerful story. But everything in the middle is missing. We just opened up Lighthouse Point, for example, and we've got many visitors going through there that have no idea what they're seeing. One of the very few historic structure buildings federally in Marquette. That goes right over their heads because there's nothing there that interprets that. We have, I don't know how many people that stop at the Ordock, look up at it and say, what is that? When we're missing these opportunities. So what I suggest is that when you look at those 4 bottom bullets, you say, the most important thing I have to do this year as this committee is to get that signage project as a deliverable to the City Commission within 1 year. And from that point, we can begin to look at where's the funding and begin to work on the funding to get the individual signs constructed and placed in some sort of order as we have, maybe we do 1, 2, 3 a year, whatever. But we really need to get that off dead center. And having not had the experience I've had with it, I can't speak as forcefully, or I can speak forcefully about it because I've been there and I watched one after another fail. And they fail because it falls into that too hard bucket. It fails because it doesn't have an advocate there saying, we got to do it, we got to do it, we got to do it. These other things that are important, you have advocacy for within the group. You don't, I suspect, have advocacy, we have to get this done. So that's my challenge, and if I could have the commission actually make a motion and do that, that would be great. Obviously, we're not in a position to do that, but I think we all would feel that way, that we have to get this particular project done. But Walt, thanks for everything. Please pass my best on to the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Frazier?
Great job as usual, Walt. You know, arts is pretty important in town. My mom's kind of involved in that stuff, and we said she was crazy, you know, a few years ago when she wanted to do some theater stuff, and still going. Although, you know, a little 19 stuff hit, so she's taking a break this year, which is fine with me. But, you know, my daughter's very involved in the arts and dance and loves all that stuff, and I know a few friends of yours that give me some comments. Miss T and I think Mr. Plord said something about they wanted to say thank you much for all your senior programs because they both know you're very involved in that. You help out a lot. And your old friend Mike said he'd always be helpful for you if you ever need it. And they both said thank you very much for all the art committee. And I know, you know, the Blues Fest, all the stuff you do for that is all great. And all the different festivals. I mean, when it comes to funding, so one person you have to look at for funding, Gary. You know, we can say as much as we want, you know, as city commissioner, we say, you know, can we get funding for this, get funding for this? And Gary is saying, well, sure, but there's a roundabout we have to pay for first, you know, we have to pay for, but there's a good thing, put artwork in the roundabout. There you go. You know, that can include, but I agree with Fred, like, signage around the big exhibits downtown, like the lighthouse, the museum, stuff like that. The Ordoc, it's very important. I know I visited up the Keweenaw and stuff like that. They have an old lighthouse up there, for years like ours, and there's a huge plaque that says, year was built, all by the government, but good information. Like Fred said, Ordoc, I worked down a boat down there for a while, and two or three people go, "What the heck is that thing?" I said, "Well, it's just an old dock, put boats in there once in a while." Historic photographs, there's all kinds of paperwork out there, So just get her done like Fred said, and Gary will find funding for you somewhere somehow. Right, Gary?
Commissioner Ponce?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Walt. I think that we would all agree that you probably should win a Grammy for that presentation. Wow. Certainly very, very easy on the ears. And it's also very encouraging to see everything that's going on in the community. Arts are very important to me and to my family. I have several family members that work in the arts in some way or another, and my fiance is a local musician, so it's something that's very, very important to me personally, sort of like what Commissioner Schlegel was saying. I think the Marquette 365 project is fantastic to hear about. It's certainly very badly needed, and it'll be a great resource for the community, so thank you for that. I want to say I appreciate you sort of being candid and actually directly answering the question about the budget. Of course, it's a reality that we all have to deal with. Mm-hmm. But I guess I would sort of encourage my fellow commissioners as well, as we're analyzing the budget in the coming weeks and months, to consider that the arts it's really an ecosystem, and that not just within the arts and culture division, but there are other decisions related to the budget that will impact the arts as well. For example, our Parks and Recreation budget would have a huge impact on the arts in our community as well. So certainly something we need to prioritize moving forward. Finally, I had one question about the cultural trail. I think it's an awesome project. I also hope to see it done in the next year or two. And I agree with Commissioner Stonehouse that those signs and the other elements of the trail, they will tell visitors who we are, and they will tell our powerful Marquette story. And I think it's very important that we recognize that Indigenous voices and history and culture are an integral part of that story. So I guess I would ask, have you as a committee considered that yet? And I suppose if not, I would just encourage you to do so.
Absolutely. In fact, there have been meetings with members of the local Indigenous communities here already about what to be included within the cultural trail. It will definitely be a part of it. It has to be a part of it. It cannot exist without it being a part of it. The cultural trail will be unique. I will say that, to put it all together, because there are many stakeholders of many interests within it. We will negotiate it as best as we can, but I can tell you that the Indigenous voice will be in it, because as I said a moment ago, we can't do it without doing that.
Great, thank you. I really appreciate that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Walt, for joining us. We certainly appreciate the presentation and
thank you very
the good
much.
work you are doing. Thank you. All right, up next we have a public hearing for ordinance number 689, sewer use ordinance. First, we will hear the background, then conduct the public hearing. Please note this item does require a roll call vote. City Clerk, could we please have the background?
Thank you, Mayor. Background: pursuant to contract Fishbeck, Thompson, Carr, and Huber, Inc., along with Davis and Davis Offices, PLC, prepared a new sewer use ordinance for the city. The proposed ordinance is based on provisions that have been developed for other Michigan municipalities and are appropriate for a community like Marquette. It is designed to ensure compliance with the city's authority and flexibility to protect the city sewers and wastewater treatment plant. It is also designed to ensure compliance with the city's National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit and to otherwise respond to any problems that might arise with respect to discharges to the sewer system, consistent with applicable local, state, and federal laws and regulations. Attached is a proposed sewer use ordinance number 689, together with an executive summary of the ordinance. Fiscal effect: none with this action. Recommendation: Following the public hearing, adopt ordinance number 689, which will repeal the existing Article 3 sewers of Chapter 48 utilities of the City of Marquette Code of Ordinances and approve of a new Article 3 sewers of Chapter 48 utilities of the City of Marquette Code of Ordinances. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you. All right, I will go ahead and open the public hearing. Public hearing for ordinance number 689, sewer use ordinance, is now open. Members of the public wishing to speak have 3 minutes to do so. Please clearly state your name and physical address. Do we have anyone wishing to speak for the public hearing? Just give us a moment while we check all of the sources. We don't have anyone? Okay, seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Stonehouse?
Your Honor, I motion to adopt ordinance 689, which will repeal the existing Article 3, parenthetical comment sewers of Chapter 48, parenthetical comment utilities of the City of Marquette Code of Ordinances and approve a new Article 3, parenthetical sewers of Chapter 48, parenthetical utilities of the City of Marquette Code of Ordinances.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Commissioner Bonzo?
I'll second that motion.
And any comments or discussion?
No further comments, Your Honor. It needs to be done.
Perfect. Commissioner Bonzo?
I would echo that.
Commissioners, any other additional discussion before we make a, okay. We need a roll call vote. Thank you, City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Bonzo?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Commissioner Frazier?
Yep.
Commissioner Schlegel?
Yes.
Commissioner Stonehouse?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Next up, we have the consent agenda. Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Schlegel?
I would make the motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Schlegel. Commissioner Davis?
I will second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion on consent? All in favor, please say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. Brings us to new business, item number 8, Lifelight Communications Special Event Permit. City Clerk, could we please have the background?
Thank you, Mayor. Background. Lifelight Communications is requesting the City Commission enter into a special event permit for city parks, streets, buildings, and grounds to use Matson Lower Harbor Park for the purposes of UP City Fest on August 14th, 2020 until August 15th, 2020. Staff has worked with the city attorney and Lifelight Communications to develop the permit. Lifelight Communications has provided the city a safety plan which outlines mask use rules, personal protective equipment use for all festival workers and volunteers, fencing of the park to control number of festival patrons in accordance with the Michigan Governor's executive orders, surface sanitizing and restroom cleaning plans, and rules festival patrons must adhere to while attending the festival. Fiscal effect: the general fund would receive $1,740 in park rental fees. Recommendation: approve the special event permit for city parks, streets, buildings, and grounds with Lifelight Communications and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the agreement. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you. Commissioners, I was hoping to see if we might be able to have a motion to suspend the rules. Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that we suspend the rules in order to have discussion on this item.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Commissioner Stonehouse? All in favor, please say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. I'd like to start off by saying I have reviewed the special events permit and the relevant executive order 2020-115 with our city attorney. EO 2020-115 specifies the following. I'm going to get into the weeds a little bit here, but I just want everyone to be aware of that executive order. A social gathering or organized event among persons not part of the same household is permitted, but only to the extent that persons not part of the same household maintain 6 feet of distance from one another, and if it is outdoors, the gathering or event does not exceed 250 people. This EO further explains that a concert space, a racetrack, sports arena, stadium, or similar venue may, if it is outdoors, be open to spectators or patrons, but only to the extent that it enables persons not part of the same household to maintain 6 feet of distance from one another at all times while in the venue. limits the number of people in the venue to 25% of its maximum capacity or 500, whichever is smaller. So after talking with the city attorney, I would say that I believe Lower Harbor Matson Park would fall into the outdoors category, not the concert space category, but that's what I was hoping that we could discuss. My opinion is not fact. We are a commission of 7. I think that because there's no permanent seating at Matson Park for people to sit for the duration of the event, that it should be deemed as an outdoor event, but I'm open to some discussion on that topic. So I know I sent that out ahead of time just for consideration, and I was wondering what you all think.
Your Honor, are you saying 500 or are you saying,
I would prefer 250
but the EO says up to 500?
for a concert venue.
Right, that is a concert venue.
That's the
We've had
debate.
11 concerts there last summer. So Matson Park would be considered a de facto concert venue.
Talking with the city attorney, I think that is open to interpretation.
Well, that's our interpretation as we would make the ruling, I would think.
That's why we're having the discussion.
Yeah, we're having the discussion.
Right.
I don't know that I agree, but, and do we want to get city attorney's opinion on this before we keep going, or should we?
No,
just-
please
yeah.
do.
Okay, Ron, are you able to kind of comment on that? We've got him on phone here.
Yes, can you hear me, Jenna?
Yes.
Go ahead, Ron.
Your Honor, okay, Your Honor, yes, I have thought about this and looked at the requirements of the executive order. I've also vetted this with my partner and also with the city, and we've all been fairly clear and unanimous in our opinion that this is an outdoor event, and the 250 capacity would apply to this event. I respectfully disagree that Matson Park is anything more than a park. You may have a concert there from time to time. You also may have a beer fest, Art on the Rocks, and all other kinds of events, but Matson Park is not, in my opinion, a concert venue. So I would propose that if the commission is going forward on this permit request, that we we add some language to the permit, and I would be ready to talk about that when you get to that point in the discussion.
Well, the only question I had was what the legal reasoning was, as you are de facto allowing and in fact promoting, as we have for 20 years, concerts at Matson Park, and do in fact have a number of them. So to say that it is not a concert location or a concert venue is counterintuitive to what experience has been.
I guess I would say my interpretation is just because we allow a concert to happen in any location doesn't mean that it's a concert venue.
That becomes, again, in my view, our venue becomes our practice. Because we have practiced it, allowed it, promulgated, pushed it, and promoted it, it therefore is that.
And I guess I just interpret the intent of the executive order is that a concert venue has predetermined seating where folks can be made to sit 6 feet apart for the duration of the event rather than milling about, which I think Matson Park oftentimes is more of the milling about scenario. So, all right. Commissioner Bonzel?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would have to respectfully agree with our city attorney and also with Mayor Smith on this issue. As I was thinking about this before the meeting, I think that it's subtle, but there is a distinction. Like there have certainly been concerts at other locations at Presque Isle Park, for example, than the band shell. That doesn't make Presque Isle Park a concert venue. The Presque Isle band shell is a concert venue. It's designed for that purpose. So I think in the same way, Matson Lower Harbor Park is a park where concerts sometimes happen, and so do many other things. So in my mind, I do think that it would make more sense to define this, both from a legal standpoint, but also a public health standpoint, as an outdoor venue, as opposed to a concert venue, and limit attendance to 250 people.
Well, I'm not arguing pro or con the concert. My discussion is what the park is and what the park has been, so we have a real, actual number that we can defend. And I think what the attorney is telling us may be legally correct in his mind, but I don't think it's publicly defendable. Because any member of the public is going to look at this and say, they do it all the time, why aren't they doing it now? And they have a valid argument.
I'm going to go down the line here. So Commissioner Davis?
Well, you've kind of confused me. I am looking at this and I don't see that they are requesting a concert. I see a festival. And so because of the documents we have in front of us, I am not sure what activities are going to be within this festival. We have a beer fest, and this is promoted as a festival. And so I'm not taking one side or the other. I'm just would like to hear more about the activities that will be at the event.
Good point. And I believe we have Dr. Sanger here. Dr. Sanger, would you mind to approach the podium and give us a little bit of information about the event itself before we can decide which category maybe this falls best into? Appreciate that. Thank you for being here tonight.
Yes, thank you. Let me say a few words about it. First of all, it's if you look at the order, it's completely just seems like you guys are micro looking at the ruling. It says or similar venue, so there does allow quite a room for interpretation. But before you get on the numbers, let's just talk about the event and why we're holding the event. Why are we doing it now? You can, if you read my letter to the editor about untold toll, there's been an untold toll that nobody's talking about to our society, and this UP is not just the only one. For example, let's take a medicine thing. From my standpoint, every physician knows of people who died because they weren't able to get medical care during the crisis. Things led, how many people got to a more serious stage because they didn't get caught early on. I had a personal friend who lost his wife through that. So I know personally that it's true. And there's the New England Journal of Medicine wrote about the untold toll. There's clearly been written and documented increased suicide rate, increased domestic violence. People are afraid and they're anxious. And we want to present a message of hope. We want to be a blessing to the city. We're not doing this just for merely entertainment. Yes, it will be entertaining. But there's the message that we want to present to the people of Marquette and the surrounding area. Basically, now you guys aren't 6 foot apart and you're not using your mask and you're inside. So you're at much more risk right now than we are on our outside event. Outside, you're about 1,000 times safer than inside. And conversely, if you're in a plane or in a bus or someplace really close, well, then you're obviously even worse. So outside, it's dispersed at an amazingly rapid rate. And it's not like you get one virus, you get the disease. You have to get a very significant inoculum. And so it's been transmitted mostly by close personal contact. The mask is actually probably the best and safest thing to protect you. And so just like when you go into Menards, if you don't have a mask, you got to buy one or whatever, they charge you $1. We would do the same thing. A mask tells me, if I wear a mask, what it's telling you is that I respect you and that I care about you. If you wear a mask, I know that you respect me. And so that's part of the theme and the basis of this. If people didn't wear masks, they're not welcome. If they won't, it's a free event, but you come in under the regulations. If you don't want it, then you can listen to it on the radio, or you can go out in your boat and watch it, or we will have people that have, we're not going to have anybody with increased risks that would go there. We would recommend that they go in the parking lot. We're going to have a big screen in front of the parking lot so that people can watch it from a car and they can be social distance. Similarly, if there's enough demand and people are out, anchored in boats, we will have a screen facing out to the water so people can see that out there and be socially distanced. We take it very seriously. This is not a political issue. You can see both sides of the spectrum have behaved badly. You could see a campaign inside with, close to 7,000 people. You could see protesters that were clearly not social distancing and shouting and screaming and everything else. So we plan to have a very safe event, and it's important because it sets the standard for the things to come. I mean, this isn't going away. Somehow people think that the vaccine is going to cure all of that and it's going to go away, but anybody who knows and was treated infections before, I've been a physician here for 32 years, and I'm an orthopedic surgeon, but I have various infectious disease specialists that I've consulted, including one who's trained at Mayo Clinic and is probably one of the smartest guys I know. He said it's not going to go away. He says the people that are going to be successful are the ones that adjust to it and move on. He said that by the time the vaccine comes out, it may or may not work. You all know about the flu vaccine. Some years they get it right and it has real good protection. Other years they don't. This last year, the CDC estimates, I wrote it in the number, somewhere between 37,000 and 53,000 people in the UP got the flu. And of those, I wrote it down, there's like roughly 40 people died. So the death rate is lower, but it's still more than twice as high as what we've seen with the COVID. And yet it didn't make any audiences. So there's a certain amount of protection that should have changed, that's long overdue. For example, nursing homes and elderly people and people that are sick, people that are at high risk. I'm personally at very high risk. I'm high risk even for being here. I have a very immune deficient state because of my treatments for my disease. And yet I've been alive for 6 years and I know how to take care of it. And I'm a physician. I know what to touch and what not to touch, and I will wash my hands when I'm done and so forth. And I've noticed almost everybody here touched their face during this meeting, and that's, and you've touched those surfaces. And so, but I'm used to that. I'm used to not touching my face, and obviously I'm a surgeon. You wouldn't want a surgeon touching his face in the middle of the operation. So it's about the message that we have, the people that we're trying to help in our community. It's also a fundraiser for UP CityServe. My wife and I founded UP CityServe in the middle of the COVID crisis because there were people that were homeless and they got put up in motels, but they had no way to get food. So we literally delivered thousands of meals. The various churches got together and we started delivering meals, started making meals, got meals from the Salvation Army and everywhere we could to get people that were, basically holed up in these places. And so we do use this also as a fundraiser. It's a free concert, but we will, we'll take donations for that. So it's about helping and blessing the community. I've done the numbers. If you do the numbers, if you socially distance people, and Madison Harbors Park is big enough that you can hold 5,066 people and keep people 6 feet apart. We don't plan to do that. Even if we had 2,500 people, and obviously there's going to be an average of 3 to 4 people in family groupings that are going to come, we can certainly space out the field. And I've gone over this with Andrew McIver and John, the head of Parks, and Mike. We would literally take your machine and chalk the field, so there would be fixed, there would be literally stations where people would go and they would park themselves. If they chose to leave, they would go out a different exit than they come in, and we're going to check everybody coming in, check everybody's temperature. We're going to also record everybody that's going to come there. It's going to be a registered event. We're going to put it through Eventbrite, and people that don't pre-register can register as they come in, so we're going to be able to trace everybody. But next summer it's still going to be here. And it's still, the numbers that we have now are almost non-existent. The last week, I think we got 1 new case in Marquette County. That's essentially non-existent. And we're getting better and better at treating him. I have a good friend who went downstate. He's a nurse anesthetist, and he went to one like Detroit Receiving, where he was in the ICU all day working there. And he saw the rapid improvement in the treatment. He says right now, they're good. They can, you can see the death rate's down to 4, in the state of Michigan over yesterday. So it's extremely low. If there's any time to do this, now is the time. Because in the fall, when the kids go back to school and they get crowded, it will go up. I don't think it's going to bump up as much as it is, but when people get in, when they're forced inside, when the weather changes, it's going to go up. You see the opposite happening right now in the South. And the South is insufferably hot. It's what you would expect. Their summer is our winter. So everybody's inside. They're in a place with air conditioning, and it's being transmitted rapidly inside. Whereas their February is our July or June, and so they're outside, and so they were all forced inside because the weather got so hot. And so it is naturally to be expected that they're going to get high rates. So our lowest and best rates, best chance of doing this is at this time. If it was
Dr.
anything
Songer,
other-
could you please answer the question about if it's a festival or a concert? I appreciate the background info, but I think that's
Okay.
the issue at hand that we want to drill
Well,
down into.
it's more than either one. It says or similar venue. The other thing is, to answer your question, I talked to both Sarah Cambenzi and Ed McBroom. Both are supportive. Sarah has the ear of the governor, and I asked her, she fully supports it, and I said, can you get, special dispensation because we're in the UP, we have got no cases, and I said, we'd like to have 2,500 people there. And she says, I think we can get that approved. She said she's 100% behind it. So I do believe that you're looking at the words.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head, and part of what you said earlier, what we decide now is going to matter for the future, probably 2 years plus. So that's why it matters so much. It's not just your event we're looking at all events in the city of Marquette for the foreseeable future. So we do have to get into minutia and determine where we're going to hold the line on certain aspects of events. So it's not to nitpick your event, it's to look at things and make sure that we're applying the same rules to everyone as we move forward. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
The website for the event shows BMX bike stunts.
That's right.
Four-wheeler stunts with 20 people crowded onto one ATV. It shows a lot of people doing prayer teams with the laying on of hands. So the way that you're promoting this event does not indicate, and maybe this was all put together a few months ago, but the information that we have in front of us does not indicate that there will be social distancing except in the plan.
Yeah, well, the plan is the modern one, though. The video that was created by Lifelight is probably, a year ago. That's not an actual thing that.
So what we have in front of us, sir, is information that causes us to, it's much more than a concert. This is a festival. You call it a festival, you have a video. What is a festival? And so there's going to be a number of, and now we're hearing about screens. So it's very challenging to be able to make a statement about something when we don't know what it is. We have to ask a couple times, and then it's not reflecting our current conditions, which are quite dire. One case is too many. Other countries have brought it down to zero. I'm not comfortable with maybe we have to bring this back. Maybe we need to talk about this more, but I'm concerned that I would suggest that you might want to thinking about the current conditions here. 2,500 is nowhere allowed in the Michigan state law right now. I'm just going to say it.
Commissioners, do we have other questions for Dr. Songer, or could we just continue the discussion and allow him to, do we have other questions for Commissioner
Just a real
Davis?
quick
Go
one.
ahead.
Yeah, I still am curious about what events you're going to have there. I understand there are going to be bands.
Yes.
What else? I mean,
There's going to be a number of speakers. The people doing stunts, they come from a group that lives together. So yes, those guys are on this thing, but you call them a family group. They live and travel together.
these are the motorcycle stunts?
Yes, so there's motorcycle stunts. There's guys called Zero Gravity. They
Okay.
jump motorcycles in the air. The BMX guys do stunts that are
And then
there.
I saw children's bounce houses on.
No, there's no children bounce houses. No,
Okay.
nothing like that where they'd be interacting. But there is an illusionist coming that has a show for children. And the children, of course, are going to be all spaced out like the adults. There is also a puppet show that we have for children. Now, children, we don't expect to be nearly as many people there, and like you said, we will keep them with their family groups and keep them separated just like we do the adults. So some of the things to answer that question is so the safety plan rules over anything that you may see on a Lifelight created video from the past. So whether it be like for example, praying for somebody, you obviously wouldn't physically be in touch with
Okay, I have
somebody.
one other question, and that is, who is your major target audience?
Our major target audience is young people, Generation Z, millennials. So anywhere, college age and high school, the major target audience.
Go ahead, Commissioner Schlegel.
What if you put on this event and very similar to what's happening downstate, because one restaurant had somebody come in and be infected. All of a sudden, you've got 60, 80 plus people. Who's responsible for that?
Well, Lifelight does take responsibility, and they have insurance, appropriate insurance for it, and this plan has been run through the insurance plan, and they haven't seen any plan as good as this, and so they had no questions and adopted it. So yes, they would take responsibility, and they're backed up by their insurance, of course. You know, the questions I would ask is, I don't know any of the circumstances about that restaurant. Did they check people's temperature before they came in? Did they question them? Did they keep them social distance?
They did everything that was set forth by the executive order that pertained to restaurants. And if you talk to if you get do a little research on that, the restaurant owner is devastated, obviously, because of this happening at his establishment, because all they did was preach to their people and say, here's what we have to do. There's no exceptions. We have to do, we have to follow these orders. Now, I get it, you know, especially up here right now. There's a lot of lax social distancing going on, and I'm really pissed off about it. But my point with this is, what if? And I'm 100% for what's behind this event. Totally love the idea, and you're darn right that people need to have this type of an outlet after this type of an event to get some normalcy back into their lives, especially with the positivity of the premise behind, you know, your group. What if? And that's where I stop and I go, what are you thinking? How can you honestly go through this and think that you're going to keep that age group socially distanced in a pen and not have to even be concerned about one person sneaking through? I just, everything else has been canceled on their own right, because they've decided to do it, each group or organization that was looking at a function, not because the city was asked to vote on whether or not we should allow it. What if? I mean, I just can't, I just can't get over that. And I feel terrible, because I really appreciate what you're trying to do. But I can't not think that something, just one is too many, like you said, Commissioner. One is too many. And the last thing I want, and you're bringing in people from not just this community, you're bringing people in from all over the place, where maybe they were taking things as serious as we were when we were at the height of things. Maybe they weren't. There's no guarantee. But I don't know. It's too much of a gamble in my eyes. So.
Other questions for Dr. Songer, or do we want to have, you have a question for Dr. Songer? Go ahead, Commissioner Frazier.
I think it's a good idea to have something positive for the community. I think that's a good idea. I mean, the thing I'm saying is, like, you're a doctor, so you kind of know what's going on. So I would think that might be a good model. You would think maybe you could set up a model to see how next events would be if the city has any more events, you know. And as we've known by our city manager has told us, the city doesn't say whether or not we're going to have an event. They just say it's up to you whether to get an event. So you guys are comfortable doing it. So the city will just decide, you know, okay, we're going to let them do it. We're not going to let them do it. You know, the city doesn't tell everybody cancel everything. Just cancel everything. Want to allow people to enjoy themselves. I think that's a good idea. I mean, I haven't really studied all the events so far, but I would think that, you know, other than, like Commissioner Seigel said, somebody sneak in or something like that, and one or two people being bad, you should take precautions. I would think, you know, you're a doctor, so you kind of know what's going on. You'll work with the community, I would think, and make sure everything's set up, do all the testing, and hopefully everything. But I mean, it's up to everybody there. Don't think it's up to everybody that's there to stay away from each other and do those. Just, it's not up to you to say, okay, stay 6 feet apart. I mean, it's up to the people to decide whether they want to do it or not, you know. And yes, I would think that. I mean, we heard that a lot from people. See what your opinion on it, but I've seen a lot. We've talked about. I was talking to the police chief. There's been tourists all over the place lately. From all, you know, I've seen license plates from. I was up the hill the other day, like PetSmart, and there's a Wyoming license plate, a Minnesota license plate. Just people all over the place. So, just because you're at an event doesn't mean tourists are going to come from all over. I mean, tourists are already here. So I guess what's your feeling on, I guess from what I've read and what I understand, the outdoor events is probably safer because the open air, less chance for transfer and stuff. And God knows we inhale a lot, just being outside with all the stuff. And I was just driving down the road today and somebody was smoking 2 cars in front of me and you could smell it from my car. It's just things you have to breathe in, but still it's like, you think, what's your size on like outdoor events? Is it safer or better, or what's your study on outdoor events?
Well, the outside events are probably 1,000 times safer than inside. I haven't heard of anywhere in the world where people have been getting it from outside. It's always inside, particularly multi-generational homes, is where it's the worst, where the kids bring it home, they give it to their parents. So you got to remember that anybody in high school and below is, if they show any symptoms at all, it's unusual. It's a minor cold. The 20 and 30-year-olds, they'll probably get a cold. I'm going to get really, really sick. And so there'll be several other people in this room that get really, really sick. I might not make it. So that would be obviously you can't always tell, but the transmission rate is exceedingly low outside. And you realize that we're not playing a pickup game of basketball or football. There's not physical contacts with people. I think the other thing is, you made one comment that I have to respond to. When you see some of these events happening on TV, like when you're having a mass rally or you're having like a protest, and you don't see the people that are doing it respecting and saying, you must respect the person next to you. If you're within 6 feet, you've got to wear a mask. And that's of course what we're going to say, because obviously the event would look poorly on us and any future events if anybody got sick. So we don't want anybody to get sick, but we can do it without anybody getting sick, by being outside and by social distancing and by cleaning the surfaces and keeping people from obviously the family units will stay together. But part of the core of this is what we're doing is showing respect for another person is wearing a mask. I show respect for you when I wear my mask because I'm protecting you. And likewise, when I see you wearing a mask, I know you respect me. We're having an African American come and talk about race relations and racial reconciliation and how can we deal with this, people that are of a...
Dr. Sanger, I think that's enough. We've got to get on with the discussion.
No, I know,
I appreciate
but I'm
you.
trying to tell you that it's more than just that. And I think that that we can do it safely without getting infections. From my standpoint, from an infectious disease standpoint, I got to respond to this question. I do not believe that there will be transfer, and the risk is extremely low.
Thank you for answering that question. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you answering our questions. I think we'll just keep the discussion going. You can go ahead and take a seat in the audience, and we will deliberate and make our decision hopefully here. Go ahead, Commissioner Davis.
I have just one more question for Dr. Sanger, if I may.
Okay.
And it could be a real quick one. And I apologize for being the person with the most questions. But we've heard some numbers. We've heard 250, we've heard 500, and then you came up with the 2,500 and requesting an exception to the governor's rule. So is the 2,500 what you're hoping to get to?
I hope to get to a number much bigger than 500. What people that look at this think that this is reasonable, and maybe the governor will say, no, 2,500 is too much, but maybe 1,500 is fine, or maybe 2,000 is fine. I don't know what it is, but...
Okay, and then my follow-up question is, will you have enough volunteers to monitor the social distancing as you've described in the safety plan?
Yes, we will.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sanger. Appreciate it. Commissioner Bonds?
How many volunteers would that be, sir?
Well, we plan to have hundreds, actually. So, and the people that are they're doing the screening and all that, we're going to primarily be nurse or medical people that are trained.
All right, Commissioners, I think that's enough for Dr. Sanger. Please let him take a seat. Commissioner Bonzo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that in principle, I think it sounds like a good event. And under normal circumstances, I'd be more than happy to have a very large event. But certainly to me, 2,500 people or anything, even 500, is a serious cause for concern. I pulled up the CDC website here on my laptop, and they say that medium-sized in-person gatherings that are adapted to allow individuals to remain spaced at least 6 feet apart and with attendees coming from outside the local area, which I think is a very fair description of this event, are classified as higher risk on a scale of lowest, more, higher, highest. So, I think personally, I'd rather trust the CDC on that. Lots of very smart people working there. We're very lucky as a country to have the best public health agency in the world, and I think that we should listen to them. At the same time, I was impressed with the safety plan that was submitted. My concern is enforceability, and my concern is, if for example, we allow an event that can have up to 250 people or 500 or however many, that way more people show up, and it becomes very difficult, if not impossible, to control. I think that's a very real possibility that we can't discount. My other question, and this is actually for the city manager, would be, are there other events? My understanding is that there are other events happening in August and early September, which would be very similar, would be using city parks or city streets. Could you elaborate on that?
We do have, we don't have anything really scheduled yet, or still. Beer Fest is still on the schedule, but other than Beer Fest, not really anything type of a festival schedule yet this year, or still this year.
All right, thank you. I would just add to that I was trying to do a little bit of research online before the meeting. It's always difficult, but at least from social media, it seems that the Orta Shore and the Marquette Marathon for August 8th and September 4th respectively are still on. Of course, that's quite different from this proposed event or from Beer Fest, but I do think we need to consider fairness as well, treating all events equitably, and how we move forward from here in the long term. So I'm still quite torn, but I think that we need to place public safety and public health as our #1 priority.
Commissioner Stonehouse?
Well, I would just comment that I was a member of the State of Michigan Arts and Culture Board that developed the plan for arts and culture small museums, what you had to do when you opened, how you had to manage when you opened, both inside the museum and outside the museum. And that gave you a very healthy respect for the difficulty that you have and the difficulty in managing that situation, even for very small groups of people. And that was whether you were in the building or outside of the building. And I don't see any way that can be managed in any large public affair, just based on the experience I had of working with folks from Henry Ford Museum and Detroit Institute of Art and the big guys, as well as a lot of the little guys. So as much as I love this event, it just scares me to death that the downside is so large and the upside is comparatively so small. Thank you.
Other commissioners, any discussion? It seems like we're quite torn on this. Commissioner Schlegel?
Yeah, I just think it's important that we bring in public comment as well throughout the past 2 weeks, I think, since this has been made public. Maybe it's a little bit more, but how many emails have we as commissioners received from the community? And every one of them, Dr. Songer, I want you to know, supports the event, saying we're all for it. They think it's a great event. It's the idea behind it. Nobody's saying anything on the contrary. But every one of them that we've got, we're saying, please don't allow this to happen. We don't want to see a spike in our community. And it's not for any other reason than the same thing that you're bringing up with us. When I'm in the store, I'm wearing a mask out of respect for you. And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that's truly, my wife's a nurse. She's dealing with the same thing you're dealing with. I get it. And we're very strict in our home with how things have been. But at the same time, every public comment that's come in has been very much in line with that.
Mayor Pro Tem Hall?
And to the fairness question, we didn't know about 2,500 until right now. That The executive order was issued on June 10th. The executive order, I believe that's the date of Executive Order 115, which was an update. You know, there's a state plan, there's 5 opening levels. We're at stage 5 here in the Northern Lower and the UP. Those numbers have been arrived at through a public process with public health officials. You know, the governor that has there's a daily email that I get about the updates and where things are. So the fact that the information you presented us doesn't actually indicate what you were hoping to do is very concerning. and if you do want to do something like this, I would recommend that you went to the state and applied for an exemption, but did not indicate that that was what you're going to do with us. And we're the ones approving the permit, sir. And it says on your Facebook page that the permit is approved. On your Facebook page, it says that both Marquette, Michigan City Council and a city in Iowa have approved the permits. That is not true, sir. That's on your website, on your Facebook page. So, well, again, the idea is noble. I think the implementation could be improved and could be a very successful event at another time.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Bonsall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I wasn't actually going to mention this, but in light of what Commissioner Schlegel and Mayor Pro Tem Hill said, I did respond to many public comments which were expressing concerns about this event. And not this event in particular, but just the idea of a large or even medium-sized public event in general. And when I replied, I always tried to let them know that, well, what we're really considering on Monday night is an event with, per the governor's executive order, 250, maybe up to 500 people at a time. And people responded, and then there's a safety plan and all these other things, all these other boxes that have been checked. And most people replied saying, oh, well, okay, that makes sense to me. I suppose I feel more comfortable with that now. But yeah, having 2,500 thrown around in this meeting and learning that apparently we're trying to get an exemption from the governor, I mean, that's discouraging. I will also say that there was not one, but there were 2 separate people who contacted me, constituents who contacted me. And they both reached out directly to the event organizers via email asking about the status of the event. And they were both told in a response from the official email of the event organizers that, yeah, it's already been approved by the city. And of course, I informed both of these local residents I was communicating with that that's not the case. We're actually voting on it on Monday night. And so one of them kind of pushed back and was basically met with a non-answer. So to me, that was troubling. I wanted to try and look past that. But I think in light of comments some of my colleagues have made, I think that it needs to be considered, hearing what we've heard tonight.
Commissioners, are we ready to make a motion?
I'm wondering if we do make a motion and that we could put a limit on it, because I too am rather surprised with the numbers that were presented, and even if it's down from 2,500 to 1,500, it's still a number that I think we all are uncomfortable with.
Well, it violates the executive order, so I would agree with that. And now, I guess there may be exemptions, but even if there are, I'm not sure that the city commission would be comfortable with those exemptions. So that would be a conversation for another time if that comes down the pike. But for now, we have to make a decision with the information we have at hand, and that's the application and the executive order as it stands. There is some nuance to that interpretation, and I understand that. That's why I wanted to bring that up today. But other than that, I think we do need to make a motion and vote whether or not to approve the permit as it stands for now. Either that or we make a motion to move it to another meeting. Go ahead, Commissioner Stonehouse.
Your Honor, if we took no action on it, then it would just die. And that would leave, I think, the applicant available to come back at another time.
I'm wondering that. I'm wondering if maybe more information could be gathered to reapply in the future.
I don't think any of us are against listening to it again.
I would agree with that if I'm seeing some head nods, so it could come back as an old business item in the future. City manager, is that okay with you too? All right, I'm just making sure we're good with staff. Okay, so at this point, undecided, and we'll move on with our agenda. Thank you, Dr. Sonder, for being here this evening, and I think we're just looking for some more information before we move forward.
Yeah, there was no emails from our group that said that, so that wasn't true. But I don't know about the webpage, but any information you could give would help you.
Yes, through city staff. Okay, thank you. All right, brings us to our second public comment session of the evening. Do we have anyone ready for public comment? Do we have any written public comment? I can ask that, okay? We've got nobody?
And no one on Zoom.
All right,
Nope.
thank you. Seeing none, public comment is now closed. Brings us to comments from the commission. We'll start off with Mayor Pro Tem Hill.
Thank you. So business during COVID, eh? Thank you, everyone, for a very thoughtful conversation. It's an honor to serve with you, to have these important conversations about the health of our community. Thank you to the staff, the police department, who has been doing a good job continuing to have conversations with our community, being available to the community in all these ways over these past couple of weeks. It's been this has all been a time where conversations are happening now that may have needed to have happened, or different perspectives are being heard. And so I think it's of great value. It can be a little uncomfortable, be a little awkward, but it's been, I think, overall, I'm hearing from the community a fairly, maybe a growth in relationships that weren't there before, and that's really important, and I wanted to thank you for that. I also, the other thing is, here on the last meeting in June, that June is Pride Month. And so we had that declaration of, in honor of the LGBTQ plus community. And again, that idea that we're opening up and bringing in new perspectives and showing the value of communities within subparts of our community that have maybe not always been welcomed, but are now, we're seeing the true value of understanding the diversities within our community while we're having the challenge of this medical pandemic. And I just wanted to recognize that one of the events that was canceled was Pride Month, which was a big Pride festival, which was going to move to Matson Park this year. And I know that was a big disappointment to a lot of folks. And so those were the two things I walked in wanting to talk about. And I think, and then I will close actually in having a new sewer policy, which is the nuts and bolts. And thank you to Curt and the staff as we also make sure the pipes keep flowing and we keep that lake clean. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Frazier.
A little bit of conversation there about some little events going on. Unfortunately, a lot of events have been canceled, which is too bad. A lot of people are just kind of trying to figure out what's going on. You know, if the event goes on, we'll see. We're going to get some more information from, you know, the governor and through the city and through everything else. We'll see what happens with that. It's until August, so we got some time to listen to see what goes on. I think that number you're talking about, it's a big number. I mean, I don't see that many people ever being in that park. I mean, I don't know. Beer Fest probably a couple hundred people, 300 people, and that was probably packed. So, but we'll see what happens with that. I guess it looks like summer's finally here again. You know, we've had ups and downs, and summer's finally here. So we go out and enjoy the parks and go out and cruise around, enjoy the parks, see the sunshine, go to the beach, just enjoy the outdoor activities, and make yourself happy because after being quarantined for months inside houses, people need to be outside enjoying themselves, and hopefully everybody gets a good job. Bye-bye.
Commissioner Bonzo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I first just want to clarify a comment that I made. I said emails before during our discussion. I meant Facebook messages, but they're Facebook messages from the Lifelight UP City Fest official Facebook page. And I quote, "Our plans have been submitted and approved by the City Council for both of our festivals in Marquette, Michigan and Rock Valley, Iowa." So contrary to the out of order comment that was made before, I was not being untruthful about that. I wouldn't be deliberately untruthful in one of these meetings. I just want to take a moment to recognize the many Marquette residents who earlier this evening were gathering over a couple blocks from here, over by the post office, protesting in favor of racial justice. Over the past few weeks, I've been honored to be in touch with some local activists, attended a great community event commemorating Juneteenth, which is a celebration of the official end of slavery in the United States. And I've been working with some of my colleagues, city staff, and members of the public to try and advance local policies that would promote racial justice and transparency here in the city of Marquette. And I think we're taking some really positive steps. I want to thank those demonstrators for keeping us accountable and making their voices heard. I also want to thank our police department for engaging in productive public dialogue with local activists and protesters. If you haven't listened to the excellent discussion between our Marquette Police Chief Reappointments and Captain Lorela and local activist Jalen Sims and Autumn Cote, I would strongly encourage you to find it on my Facebook page or look it up on YouTube and give it a listen. It's well worth your time. And I think it might give you some hope, as it did for me. If you're interested, you can also now find the MPD use of force policy and a lot of accompanying information at marquettemi.gov/police/police. And finally, I just want to reiterate that Black Lives Matter. I think it's really important that we center that always in our public meetings and conversations as we move forward, trying to figure out how to move forward together into a more just and equitable future, both on a national level, but also here in Marquette. I also want to extend my thanks to the Iron Ore Heritage Recreation Authority. For 2 years, they've been working with the city and many other community partners to create a faithful recreation of the Carp River Kiln near the shore of Lake Superior, which is a really important part of our local history. They've built this small, beautiful little public historical park around the restored kiln. And tonight, my colleagues and I had the honor of attending the ceremony transferring the Carp River Kiln property back to the city and making it the newest addition to our city park system, which is fantastic for the community. But it was really the Iron Ore Heritage Authority and their community partners who came up with the idea, made the plans, raised the funds, and made it happen. I think it's also important to recognize that Primo Construction worked through the winter and a pandemic to make sure that this project would get done on time. And I think between this and their help recently, working with the city and Chocolate Township in repairing the trail along the South Marquette Lakeshore, I think everyone in the city of Marquette owes the Iron Ore Heritage Recreation Authority a huge debt of gratitude for bringing a lot of positive change to our South Marquette Lakeshore recently at virtually no cost to city taxpayers. And as a big history nerd, I'll be stopping by the Kiln Park very often. Finally, I just want to wish everybody a happy 4th of July, and just want to ask that we all continue to practice social distancing, wear masks in public, and remain respectful of one another above all as we celebrate our country's 244th birthday. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Schlegel?
Thank you, Mayor. Kind of revisit a couple things that we've talked about in the last couple meetings, especially with the parks opening up. We've got to do a better job of self-policing with our tourists that are coming to town. Lots of dogs being seen out at Presque Isle. I took a walk with some friends and family on Saturday and politely just said, just so you're aware, dogs are not permitted in the parks, and that if they could potentially ticket you if you don't move on. And the people were very nice, but one of them was plates from Minnesota, the other one was plates from Texas. So maybe they're not reading the signs on the way in, but there's a good way to politely ask them or remind them the rules within the city. So I would ask that, again, it's all about self-policing. Let's work together on these types of little issues that make us a better community. I'm going back to the PPE. We need to wear the masks. I'm begging you, don't just leave them in the car when you're going into a Holiday gas station in the morning for your coffee, and you've got 20, 30 people that are milling around, and only 4 or 5 of them are wearing masks. I would ask that our establishments, whether they're gas stations or restaurants, encourage and follow the guidelines that are set forth in the EO. I know that I've heard of some businesses that were getting kind of beat up with the fact that they were requiring it down to the T, and I really respect them for doing that, and asking the people and letting them know ahead of time that, hey, if you're going to be in here, here's how we've got this set up. I've also been contacted and witnessed other businesses that have almost zero, almost as if there was nothing going on whatsoever, not even barely a sign on the door going in, acknowledging the need for us to, police ourselves and make sure that we're establishing social distancing and wearing our masks. So please, do the right thing. It's not, I know it's an inconvenience, but we're going to get through this together. The kiln project that we went down and opened up tonight was fascinating. It's a beautiful example of a piece of history. It's almost completed. There's a few more things. There will be a gate put on the front of it. If you happen to get down there, there will be a gate to keep people out during times that it should be closed. But overall, the project was fun to watch come to fruition, and I really do appreciate that little piece of history being reestablished in our community. Fireworks, know the rules. Police commissioners, everybody else is going to be putting it on their Facebook pages. You should be getting a flyer when you go and buy your fireworks. So please respect your neighbors during this time, and only fire off the fireworks during the allotted times. Last thing we want is somebody, number one, getting hurt, and number two, causing an issue for your neighbors. So be respectful. And happy 4th of July. That's about it.
Thanks. Commissioner Davis?
I was looking down at someone else. I think tonight's discussion is a real indication of how difficult it is to make decisions for the safety of citizens during this virus. None of us on the commission are epidemiologists, nor are we public health professionals, and so those are the experts we need to rely on, and that's how the regulations are set. So those of you who are interested, please send us messages how you feel about this, and also send them to the organizers of the event. So we'll look forward to our next discussion on that. I want to thank the city staff and the police department for providing the major updates to the department's website. As Commissioner Monsell said, it's a very good website. It gives you lots of information on the policies and procedures that address Black Lives Matter and the 8 Can't Wait. And I'm also very pleased that our police department has an accreditation from the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police and has a structure and practice that is in place to be recognized as a model in Michigan. So thank you very much. Thank you to the city band for the concert last week that was held at the City Commons. It was so nice to go through the city and hear the music playing, and it was an example of the band being socially distanced, the cars that had the windows open and people were being safe, and even those that were sitting on the lawn were very far apart. So it was a great example of the music and the joy that is brought to the community and in a safe manner. So thank you very much, City Band. I also was going to say something about the kiln, but wow, that was a very cool ceremony, and I think enough has been said. So all I will say is stay safe over the Independence Day weekend.
Commissioner Stonehouse?
Yes, Your Honor. It was a real pleasure to see the 2 Marquette police officers honored tonight with the recognition that they so richly deserved. And it serves, again, I think, as a reminder for all of us of what these fellows may do on any given day at a moment's notice. But it also serves to show, I think, the public and to demonstrate clearly just what a very special force of police we have. And I'm very proud to have them, again, as members of the Marquette PD. I was serious when I spoke with Walt about the trail markers. I think they're very important that we get that done finally. That 2000 committee actually had money to go ahead and do the project, and that money was pulled away by the city manager at the last minute. So that's how close that came to happening. He used it for another project. And city managers have the right to do that, but he didn't do that. It was another city manager, managers ago. But again, we understand that this is something that can really work in our favor, and we just have to get that elevated a little bit and get it done. Reminder too for the public that may have heard the $2,500 comment going back and forth with the governor, or 2,500 people rather. She can do anything she wants to. She can make it 10,000 people. It has no effect on this commission. We cannot exceed that number, but we can deny it completely, or we can come in at 1,000 or come in at 1,500 or 2. In other words, we have the ability to go lower than anything that's in an EO. We cannot exceed the EO. Again, just so everybody understands the context of that. Fireworks coming up, of course, for the 4th of July, and I ask everybody to follow the fireworks ordinance. We spent a lot of time putting that together a couple of years ago, and it's last year I think it really proved some value in keeping some of the difficulties we traditionally had in the city down. A lot of discussion on, obviously, CV-19. All of us have to take a breath and realize that there's 3 things we can do, only 3 things we can do, and they happen to be the 3 effective things that we can do. One is wear the mask as necessary, right? We know when to do that. The other is to keep socially distant. We know that. And the third one is wash our hands. So we have 3 simple assignments that we can do, and it will be effective, and we've seen the effect in the Upper Peninsula. We look at very low infection rates occurring here. For example, it was about a week ago, I think, or 2 weeks ago, when we went through the one at the Berry Center. We had nearly 1,000 people and an infection rate of 0.02%. 0.02%. And that didn't happen just because somebody smiled up on top of the hill. It happened because people were doing what they should be doing. So I really applaud people that are making that effort. Lastly, 2 taskers, if I can. City Manager, when your time comes up, if you can talk to us about the piling field a little bit and our situation on that. And Chief Blake, if you can assure everybody how we deal with surplus military equipment. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. A couple things. I think most items were covered tonight. Thank you, Commissioners. One, we have a work session and a bus tour next week, July 8th. We've got the capital improvement plan tour for the commissioners and some city staff, and then at 6:30 p.m. there's a work session, and the public would be able to participate, I believe, in the same way. Yeah, but I would believe the public could call in for comments and watch via video. I would think we'd have to follow the same kind of procedure we've been doing. Okay, we will get that out to the public. And then secondly, I just wanted to reiterate the fireworks comments, and I've kind of broken this down, the rules down into lay people terms. So let me go through them, because people, I don't think, are apt to read the entire 2-page ordinance. So low impact fireworks are okay anytime. What is a low impact firework? Sparklers, things that don't leave the ground. You know, the little tiny ones. Okay. Anything that leaves the ground, I'm looking at Chief Rebold, the big ones, anything that leaves the ground is allowable, but only during very specific time frames. So the big boomers are, for the 4th of July right now, they're available to be used tonight, to June 29th, through July 4th, from 11 a.m. to 11:45 p.m. So that's it. Those are the only days you're allowed to use the big ones for the 4th of July. Right now, till the 4th of July, which is Saturday, from 11 a.m. to 11:45 p.m. There are other holidays throughout the year you can use them, but we're not focused on those right now. You've got to be 18 and over to use those fireworks. It's got to be on private property. We get this complaint a lot. Don't do it in our parks, please. Don't do it in church parking lots, school parking lots. Do it on your own private property. And please make sure that you plan ahead and not have any of the debris falling on your neighbor's roof or yard or house. Do it in a place where that's not going to be an issue. If you do violate anything that I've just said, it's a $1,000 fine for each violation. And I know we're going to have extra patrols out, so just be aware of the rules so that you can have fun, everyone else in town can have fun, and we appreciate it. Just happy 4th of July to everyone, and I think that's it for me. City Manager, anything to add?
Thank you. Yes, thanks for reminding everybody of the Capital Outlay Tour next week. That will be followed by the meeting, and you'll get a bird's eye view of our projects for next year. Remind the commission that the 4th of July holiday will be observed in the city on Friday, the 3rd. So even though the building's closed to the public, it will be empty. So if you're looking for anybody, sorry. In regard to the piling fields, we are still in the permitting process. For that, we have submitted our permits to the Army Corps of Engineers, who in turn are waiting for a approval from the State Historical Preservation Office, or SHPO. That permit and that information is probably, it's been 3 weeks now since we filed that, so SHPO is not known to be quick in their turnaround. Yeah, just, okay. Yeah. And so as soon as we get that clearance, which we are anticipating, we should be able to begin the project yet this year. Blake, would you like to make a comment about the?
To comment to Commissioner Stonehouse's recommendation on military surplus, there are programs available for police departments in the past to obtain used military surplus. We do not participate in that at Marquette Police Department, so we're not really, and this kind of started from my predecessor, City Manager Angeli. We're not looking to be a militaristic style police department. So some of the big vehicles and such, we don't find applicable to our department at this point. So we don't partake in those programs. So, and then on that, one quick thing on the fireworks. Those of you that want to look at the ordinance, it is on our website, the city, like the mayor said, and we also have posted it on the Marquette Police Department Facebook page. So if there's any questions, feel free to contact us regarding what you can and what you can't do for the fireworks as far as the city ordinance goes. So thank you, Your Honor.
Great, thank you. We are adjourned at 7:57 p.m.